Tier 1, the day that nearly broke me. Some nights, it's not the storm outside that breaks you. It's the quiet inside. This is whispered parenting. It started with a whisper. Not from her, but from something inside me. A quiet voice I had tried so hard to ignore, the one that murmured, "You're not doing enough. You're failing." It was a Tuesday. Cloudless. The kind of day where everything looks perfect from the outside. But inside, I was crumbling. I stood in the hallway, coffee untouched on the kitchen counter, watching the thin crack of light beneath her door. My hand hovered above the doorknob like it always did when I wasn't sure if I should go in or just keep walking. She hadn't spoken to me in 3 days. Not since the moment I said, "I'm tired too. You know." And I regretted it the instant the words left my lips. 'Cause I didn't say it with love. I said it with walls, with sharp corners, with tiredness masquerading as control. I didn't even know what we were fighting about anymore. Maybe it was the dishes. Maybe it was the way she slammed her journal shut when I walked in. Or maybe it was everything that went unsaid between us. The silence had grown teeth. That morning, I sat at the edge of my bed, holding a sock I couldn't remember putting on. I couldn't think straight. I just kept hearing her voice from months ago. "You don't listen. Mom. You wait to talk. That's different." And she was right. I had been listening with defense, not with presence. I was so busy parenting from fear. Fear of messing up. Fear of losing her. Fear of not being enough that I forgot to just love. I walked down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. Outside, birds chirped with an innocence that mocked the weight in my chest. When I stood at her door, I rested my forehead against it. I didn't knock. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, praying that the quiet would soften first in me before it could ever soften in her. Memories flashed through my mind like slideshows in a dim room. Her first day of preschool. The time she fell asleep in the car with a crayon still in her hand. The night she got scared of the thunder and crawled into my bed without a word. When did it get so hard? When did bedtime stories turn into closed doors? I thought about slipping a note under the door, like we used to, but the words felt too thin. I thought about knocking, but what if she didn't answer? I thought about walking away, and I almost did. I turned, took one step down the hall, and something inside me, something quiet but firm, said, "If you walk away now, it will be easier to do it next time." So I stood still, just breathing, just hoping. Tier 2. The quiet between the cracks. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels sharp, like walking barefoot across shards of everything we never said out loud. That morning, after standing at her door and nearly walking away, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I sat down, right there, on the hallway floor. Back against the wall, knees tucked in, forehead resting in my hands. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that comes after a slammed door or a held-back sob. It wasn't the silence of calm. It was the silence that comes when two hearts are too bruised to speak. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I felt everything pressing in on me. I thought about the things I wanted to say to her. The ones that had been building in my chest for days. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just scared. Or, I don't know how to do this right, but I'm trying. Or simply, I miss you. Because I did. I missed her even though she was just feet away. I missed the way she used to leave notes on my pillow when she was too shy to say something aloud. I missed how she'd laugh with her whole body, falling sideways on the couch like her joy couldn't be contained. I missed being her safe place. And I hated the voice in my head that kept whispering, "You ruined it." I heard the creak of her floorboards. Just one. Just enough to know she was awake. Just enough to make my breath catch in my throat. I didn't move. I didn't want to startle whatever delicate thread was forming. I just whispered, barely audible, "I'm here." And I don't know if she heard me. I don't even know if it mattered in that moment. But it was the first honest thing I'd said in days. The hallway felt like a waiting room for two hearts trying to find each other again. I closed my eyes and thought about the crack in the kitchen tile. It's been there for years, small, just enough to catch crumbs and annoy me when I sweep. But I remember when it formed. She was 5. She dropped a mug trying to help me with the dishes. It hit the floor with a crash. And she cried, thinking I'd be angry. But I wasn't. I picked her up, held her close, and I said, "It's just a crack. Cracks happen. We still sweep. We still love." I don't know why that memory came to me then, but it did. Maybe because I needed to remember that cracks aren't the end of things. They're just a part of the story. And this moment, this silence between us, maybe it wasn't a collapse. Maybe it was just a crack. And maybe, if I stayed, if I listened without needing to fix, if I let go of the need to be right or perfect, maybe we could find each other again through that tiny break. The light through her window shifted, casting a thin golden line under the door, and I imagined her sitting on the other side, knees drawn up, just like mine. Two hearts, two silences, separated by a door and everything that had built up behind it. But I stayed. I let the quiet do what it needed to. I didn't fill it with words or apologies or explanations. I just let it breathe. And in that stillness, something softened. Not loudly, not dramatically, but just enough for me to finally cry. A silent, slow kind of cry. The kind that doesn't need sound to be heard. Tier 3, the almost goodbye. I don't think we ever plan our almost goodbyes. They're the ones that sneak in, the ones where you almost say something unforgivable, or almost walk away without turning back. They live in the space between slammed doors and unspoken words. And that morning, mine came with the quiet turning of a doorknob. I had drifted into a daze on the hallway floor. My head rested against the wall, my knees stiff from sitting too long. I wasn't expecting movement. But then, without a sound, her door opened. Just a few inches. Just enough for the light to hit her face. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me. And I looked at her. She wasn't crying. But there was a red tint around her eyes. The kind you get after trying not to cry for too long. I couldn't speak at first. Because if I did, it would have cracked something inside me open too wide. So I just gave her the smallest smile I could manage. Not the "I'm fine" kind, but the kind that says, "I see you. I'm still here." She stepped out of the room slowly, like the floor was fragile beneath her feet. She didn't sit next to me. Not yet. She just leaned against the opposite wall, her arms crossed over her chest, her gaze somewhere just beyond my shoulder. I don't know how long we sat like that. It could have been minutes. Or hours. But in that silence, something old between us began to shift. She finally whispered, "Did you mean it? Last night?" And I froze. Because I couldn't even remember what words she was holding. Which one had landed wrong? Which silence had hurt more than what I'd said? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. So I tried again. "No," I whispered. I didn't mean it. At least not the way it sounded. She nodded, still not looking at me. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, she said, "You looked like you hated me." That broke me. Because she had seen it in my face. That moment when I lost my patience, not just with her, but with everything: the long days, the messy house, the guilt, the exhaustion. But I had let her believe it was her I couldn't handle. I shook my head. "I didn't hate you," I said softly. "I hated feeling like I was failing you." Her eyes finally met mine. And there it was, the little girl I had once carried on my hip, now standing across from me, hurting in ways I had helped create. She whispered, "You stopped talking to me." And I knew she was right. I had pulled away. In my fear of saying the wrong thing, I said nothing at all. In my need to be strong, I became unreachable. I took a slow breath. I didn't know how to talk without making it worse. I said, "So I thought if I gave you space." She cut in. I didn't need space. There was no anger in her voice. Just sadness. Just the echo of nights where she waited for a knock on her door that never came. "I needed you to sit with me," she said. Even if we didn't say anything, I felt the tears then. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet warmth sliding down my cheek. She stepped forward. Not much, just enough to close the distance between two hearts that had forgotten how to reach. And then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, she said, "I thought you didn't want to be my mom anymore." And my heart shattered. Right there, in the hallway, in the soft morning light, with everything fragile laid bare between us. I reached out my hand. Not to grab her, not to pull her in, just an open hand, an invitation. She looked at it, then looked at me, and then, slowly, she stepped forward and sat beside me. Our shoulders touched, our silence softened, and in that quiet, I whispered, "There was never a day I didn't want to be your mom. I just forgot how to be the kind you needed." She leaned her head against my shoulder. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt the space between us begin to fill not with words, but with presence. We didn't fix everything that morning, but something changed. Our almost goodbye became an almost homecoming. And that was enough. Tier 4. The morning light didn't hurt this time. There was something strange about the way the light crept across the floor that morning. It was soft, not like the mornings before, where the sun seemed to crash into the room like a wave I didn't ask for, where the light only reminded me of everything we didn't say the night before. But this time, it felt gentle, like it was tiptoeing around us, not wanting to interrupt. We stayed sitting on the floor longer than I expected. Neither of us had anywhere to be. Not really. There were things waiting. Of course, breakfast, laundry, emails. The 1,000 tiny obligations that pull at every mother. But none of them mattered more than this quiet moment between us. I looked at her again. She was tracing something on her jeans with her fingertip. A nervous habit. I remembered suddenly. She used to do that when she was 6, before a piano recital or a dentist appointment. It made me smile. Just a little. I used to do that too. I said it softly. She looked at me, puzzled. What? The thing with your finger, I said, mimicking the circular motion. I used to do it when I didn't know how to say what I was feeling, like I was drawing the words before I could find them. She blinked. Then something shifted in her face, something like recognition, or maybe even relief. We both chuckled quietly, not because it was funny, but because the tension needed to loosen somewhere. She leaned her head back against the wall and let out a breath. "I didn't think you'd stay," she whispered. "Outside my room. I mean, I thought you'd walk away." I looked down at my hands. I remembered how close I had come to doing just that. I almost did. I admitted, but something told me not to. Maybe it was your silence. She turned to look at me. "I was hoping you'd come back." Those words hit deeper than she knew. Because there had been so many nights when I thought maybe she didn't care anymore. That maybe the bridge between us had collapsed quietly when I wasn't looking. But she had waited. She had hoped. Even when I had no idea how to show up. She had left the door cracked. "I'm sorry it took me so long," I said. She nodded. And for the first time in days, her face softened. There was still hurt there, but not resentment. Wounds that hadn't healed, but that were finally clean. Then she asked, "Do you remember when you used to sit at the end of my bed and read to me?" I smiled. "Every night. Even when you were tired. Especially when I was tired," I said. "Those were the nights I needed it, too." She laughed under her breath. "I used to think you knew every book in the world." I turned my head toward her. "I did," I said, "but only the ones you liked." She smiled. It wasn't wide, but it reached her eyes this time. We both stood slowly, our legs complaining from the hard floor. She stretched, and I saw how tall she was now. How much of the little girl I once knew had turned into someone new. Someone still learning how to let herself be loved again. Hungry, I asked. She nodded. But then she added, "Can we just sit on the couch first, before everything starts?" Everything. She meant the noise, the phones, the news, the lists, the world that always felt like it was chasing us. "Yes," I said. "We can do that." I made us tea. Her favorite, the one with cinnamon and orange peel. She used to call it warm leaf juice and refused to drink it unless I made it with honey. I brought the mugs into the living room, and we sat there, side by side, legs tucked under us, like we were stealing time. She sipped carefully. Then she asked, "Is it okay if we don't talk right now?" And I said, "That's more than okay." We sat in silence, but it wasn't the same silence that had filled the house the last few days. It wasn't sharp or cold or full of blame. It was peaceful. Like our hearts were doing the talking without needing our mouths to get in the way. She rested her head lightly on my shoulder, and for a moment, I remembered the weight of her as a baby, the way she'd fall asleep there, trusting that nothing bad could happen while I was close. I wanted to give her that feeling again. I didn't know if I could, but for the first time in a long time, I wanted to try. Tier 5, where love waited for us to return. The days that followed weren't perfect, but they didn't need to be. She still closed her door sometimes. I still hesitated in front of it. But now, there was something different in the space between us. Not fear, not frustration, but room. Room for mistakes. Room for the quiet ways we both tried. Room for love to stretch again after being curled up too tight for too long. One evening, I passed by her room and saw the light still on. Not the ceiling light, but that old lamp with the soft shade, the one I bought when she was 10, because she said the overhead light was too loud. I smiled. It was a small thing. But small things are the ones that change us. I paused, knocked lightly on the door frame. She looked up from her sketchbook. "Hey," I said. "Hey," she replied. No eye roll. No cold shoulder. Just an invitation in a single word. I stepped inside. She scooted over, making space on her bed, just like she used to. "I was just drawing," she said, flipping her notebook shut. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated, then opened the book again, slowly. It was a simple sketch. Rough lines. Unfinished. A window. Curtains. The silhouette of a woman sitting at the edge of a bed. Me. I looked at her. "You drew this," she shrugged. "It's just practice." But I knew it wasn't. It was memory. It was her way of saying. I noticed. It was love, translated through pencil and paper. I didn't say anything right away. I just sat beside her, the way I used to when she was too tired to sleep and needed company more than a lullaby. She leaned against me, and then she whispered something I wasn't expecting. "I'm glad you didn't walk away." My throat tightened. I wanted to say something profound, something she'd remember. But all that came out was, "Me too." We stayed like that for a while. And in that silence, I understood something I hadn't before. Sometimes, The moments that heal us aren't loud. They don't come wrapped in apologies or grand gestures. They arrive in quiet ways, in the turning of a page, in the gentle closing of a door that used to slam, in the return of small traditions, like tea at night or humming in the kitchen. And most of all, in the decision to stay, even when it would have been easier to go. The next morning, I woke up early, made her pancakes the way she liked, crispy at the edges, not too thick. I added blueberries. She always picked them out when she was younger, but now she said they tasted like soft fireworks. She came into the kitchen, sleepy-eyed and hoodie-wrapped, and said, "You're up early. I wanted to try again." I said. She smiled, took the plate, sat at the counter. "I think I want to try again too," she said, around a mouthful. And that's how healing began. Not with one perfect day, but with one imperfect morning, with blueberry pancakes and a quiet promise. That night, as we both got ready for bed, she passed by my door and paused. Then, softly, so softly I almost missed it, she said, "Good night, Mom." I froze, because I couldn't remember the last time she called me that without pain in her voice. It felt like a lullaby I hadn't heard in years. And I said back, just as gently, "Good night, sweetheart." She didn't reply, but I didn't need her to. The silence that followed was full of trust, full of breath, full of beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep smiling.